For Krima Media's Polity, I'm Sanel Dlamini. Political analyst Aubrey Majiki joins me to discuss the EFF-ANC merger. Why do you think the EFF and ANC supporters who voted the EFF don't like the idea of a merger?
Well, if you look at those who first of all abstained, they were abstaining in protest against the ANC. And one of the reasons the ANC went down so badly in the key metropolitan areas is because its own supporters stayed away. And then you had those supporters of the ANC who voted EFF and DA. And it's very clear that they were doing so because of growing levels of antipathy towards two things: the president and the ANC as the president's party itself. So they were sending a message that they want change. And for the EFF to go into a merger with the ANC would be sending a message to them that they have wasted their vote by voting EFF, because the EFF effectively would be breathing new life into the ANC.
Does this mean Julius Malema's blood is still black, green and gold, even though he has moved on?
Well, you know, with politicians, even the best of tests cannot tell you what color their blood is. I suspect that their blood changes according to changes in the political environment and in accordance to what is going to be lost or benefited. So there was a time when he swore that his blood would always be black, green and gold. And I do remember in recent times he has sworn that at the time of rigor mortis setting in, his blood will be red. But if rumors over the past 3 years are anything to go by, there have been attempts by some within the EFF and the ANC to talk about some kind of rapprochement or duodenering, through which some elements in the EFF, particularly those who come from the ANC, would go back home. I suspect that project has been overtaken by events, particularly the performance of the EFF in the last elections. I think now there is a tension between the idea of these EFF leaders who were in the ANC going back to the ANC, and those in the EFF who might say, no, with what we have achieved, and given the fact that the ANC is in a state of decline, it makes more sense for ANC members and leaders to join the EFF.
Are we likely going to witness another political party formed by the members of the EFF and ANC who are not happy about the idea of a merger?
Well, a political party may be produced by this merger, not in the manner that those who want the merger think. In this sense, inside the ANC and inside the EFF, you will find some support for the idea of a merger, and you will find some opposition to the idea of a merger in both parties. Now, the possibility is that those who support the merger come together and they form a new party. And those who oppose the merger in the EFF and the ANC stay where you are. So after the merger, you don't get one party, but 3 parties.
Do you think that Julius Malema was genuine when he revealed this information of a merger to Checkpoint, or was it a calculated move?
I suspect he was genuine. The question for me is whether this is an idea that he canvassed with others within the EFF. And if he did canvass it with others within the EFF, did the idea receive any kind of support? Was it discussed? I listened to an interview that was done with Dalimpofu the day after the Checkpoint interview, in which Malema talked about the idea of a merger. And to me, Dali was at sea. He was in 6s and 7s and didn't seem to know about the idea of a merger. So he gave a rambling answer, which to me was a very clear sign that this idea has not been canvassed within the EFF.
Aubrey, do you think that the EFF has realized that it won't stand a chance in winning the 2019 elections without the ANC.
Well, the difference between the EFF and the ANC at the moment is that the ANC is a party in decline. The EFF is a party that potentially, going forward, is going to grow. So one party is coming alive and another is dying. So the ANC is dying, the EFF is coming alive. Now, where Malema is correct is that even if the ANC falls below 50% in 2019, it is highly unlikely that any single party will win an absolute majority, which means then the question is, for the EFF, does it go into a coalition with the ANC or the DA? Now, of course, that decision is based on principle, policy orientation, ideology, and the outcome of the election itself, because the margins may determine whether the EFF goes into a coalition with the ANC or with the DA. But there is also the possibility that what may precede a post-election merger or coalition is a pre-election pact. Because if they are anticipating the possibility of a coalition or a merger after the election, they may want to enter into a pre-election pact where they settle on things such as the policy platform of the merger or the coalition. Because what you saw after the local government elections is the fact that because there was no pre-election pact between any two parties, it is only after the election that they were trying to sort out policy differences, ideological differences, and other differences, which they could have sorted out if they had entered into some kind of a pre-election pact. Other parties don't like pre-election pacts because they believe they paint themselves into a corner before an election. So if you don't enter into a pre-election pact, you give yourself room after the election to consider possibilities you may not be able to consider if you have locked yourself into a pre-election pact. That possibility goes to the possibility that after an election, you may want to go into a coalition with a party that is not the party you wanted to go into a pre-election pact with.
Why do you think President Jacob Zuma said the merger will not happen while he was still alive?
Well, it is not a matter of fact that he said that. There are rumors to that effect, that such a merger would happen over his dead body, or Julius Malema and others would go back to the ANC over his dead body. Now, of course, if you look at what is happening in our politics at the moment, it seems some in the EFF and others who are not in the EFF but are outside the ANC are beginning to smell the political corpse of the president. And I suspect Julius' talk of a merger is informed in part by his nose. His nose is beginning to smell the political corpse of Jacob Zuma.
What are the chances of the merger causing splits in the ANC and the EFF?
There's a reasonable chance that the idea of a merger can split both parties. For instance, if President Jacob Zuma continues to have either majority support in the ANC until the elections, or has significant minority support, the fact that he's not going to be president of the country after 2019, or may not be re-elected for a third term as ANC president next year, does not matter. What matters is whether in 2019 those who support him constitute a majority or a significant minority. And if they do, they may not support the idea of a merger. And the tension between them and the rest may cause a split in the ANC. When it comes to Julius Malema, the same applies. But there's an additional factor, the political identity of Julius Malema. In my view, Julius Malema can either break or make the EFF. He is a gifted politician, and I'm not being completely approving when I say that. And as a talented politician, he can make the EFF. But if rumors that he has dictatorial tendencies are true, that tendency can divide and ultimately break the EFF, which means in his political identity is embedded the seed for the EFF's growth, but is also embedded the seeds for the demise of the EFF.
And do you think the DA will somehow benefit on the split?
Well, you know, the next 2 years or so will decide that with regard to his performance in Johannesburg, in Port Elizabeth. Because there are those who voted for the DA in a search for change. And the primary change is a change in their lived reality, in their material conditions. The question is whether, through its policy platform, the DA can deliver the kind of change that is required by those who were victims of apartheid and colonialism. I doubt that is the case. If they reach a point where, through their experience of DA government, they themselves doubt that the DA is the party of the future, it's not a given that the DA will benefit from the tensions that may be caused by the idea of a merger between the ANC and the EFF.
That was political analyst Aubrey Majiki speaking to Krima Media's Polity about the EFF-ANC merger.